I'm Daniel. I'm 38, and until not long ago, I truly believed my marriage was stable, maybe even comfortably predictable in the best possible way. It was the kind of relationship where routines didn't feel boring or lifeless. They were familiar rhythms that brought comfort and trust. I wasn't a perfect husband, but I was dependable. I worked hard, tried to be emotionally present, handled my responsibilities without complaining, and above all, I trusted my wife with a level of faith I never realized was almost blind. Claire is 34, intelligent, outgoing, and naturally magnetic. People were always drawn to her without effort. For years, I saw her as the heart of our life together, warm, bright, and grounding. But over the past several months, something changed. She became restless, craving excitement, constant stimulation, and noise, everything that stood opposite the quiet, steady life we had built. I could feel her slowly slipping away, yet every time I tried to put that feeling into words, they disappeared before I could speak them. The night everything truly began to fall apart started with a simple comment over breakfast. "Some of the girls might go out Friday," she said casually. "I'm thinking about joining them." I swallowed my uneasiness and simply nodded. Pretending it didn't bother me felt easier than admitting the truth, that I was terrified of losing her. When Friday finally arrived, she got ready differently than usual. It looked less like she was dressing for a casual night out and more like she was preparing to impress someone. Her dress was shorter than normal, her makeup was bolder, and she spent extra time styling her hair, something she hadn't done in years. She sprayed perfume along her collarbone, and the scent twisted something painfully inside my chest. "You look nice," I said quietly. "Thanks," she replied without even meeting my eyes. She walked out the door wearing a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. The house immediately felt wrong without her. Too silent, too empty. I found myself pacing from room to room, checking my phone over and over, even though she almost never texted while she was out. Midnight passed, then 1 o'clock, then 2. Finally, my phone lit up. "Don't wake up. Nothing more." I didn't sleep at all. I lay in the darkness staring at the ceiling, replaying every warning sign I had ignored, every small moment that suddenly carried a completely different meaning. She came home close to 4 in the morning, laughing loudly while stumbling through the front door with her phone pressed to her ear. A man's voice quietly echoed from the other end. I heard it clearly. She didn't even notice me sitting awake on the edge of the bed. She simply crawled under the blankets and passed out. The following morning, she was irritated, exhausted, and hungover. When I quietly asked, "Who were you talking to last night?" she rolled her eyes. "A friend. Try not to be so insecure." That word, insecure, hits differently when it comes from the person who's supposed to protect your heart. The next weekend, she went out again. This time, there wasn't even a girls' night excuse. "I just need some space." By midnight, the knot in my stomach had become unbearable. Months earlier, she had forgotten that our phones still shared locations. One glance told me everything. She wasn't with friends. She was at a rooftop bar downtown. Then one of her friends uploaded a story online. In the background of a laughing group photo, I saw Claire leaning into another man. His hand rested comfortably, confidently on the small of her back. She tilted her head toward him, laughing as though he had just shared the funniest secret in the world. I didn't feel rage. I felt ice, a slow, freezing numbness that quietly destroyed everything inside me. At 2:30 in the morning, another message arrived. "Don't wait up." I didn't. Instead, I drove to the bar and parked far enough away that she wouldn't notice my car. A few minutes later, she walked outside with him. His arm rested around her waist as though it belonged there. They hugged. Not a quick goodbye, a lingering, intimate embrace that knocked the breath from my lungs. Eventually, she got into an Uber alone and headed home. But that didn't erase the image burned into my memory. By the time she reached our house, I had already locked the front door. At first she knocked gently, then harder. "Dan, babe, open the door." I stayed silent. Her voice grew frustrated. It's freezing out here, seriously. Still, I said nothing. After several long minutes, the anger disappeared from her voice. Confusion replaced it, then fear, then something even deeper, something I had never heard from her before. She called me. When I answered, the voice on the other end didn't sound like the confident, playful Claire I had married. It didn't even sound like the distant version she had recently become. It sounded frightened. Daniel, please open the door. Something happened. I need to talk to you. Hearing her like that cracked something inside me. I stood there staring at the door, my hand hovering over the lock while my heart pounded with equal parts warning and compassion. For the first time in our marriage, I realized I had absolutely no idea what waited for me on the other side of that door. My chest ached, not with anger anymore, but with something calmer and far clearer, understanding. I had poured years of my life into this marriage. I had given it loyalty, patience, and everything I had. Now the next step rested entirely with me. Claire, I said quietly, my voice steady, talk to me. What's happening? She froze, took a shaky breath, and finally let everything pour out. The late nights, the flirting, the drinks that turned into something more. She admitted she had been feeling restless, trapped, desperate for excitement. Her voice shook with every sentence, but every explanation landed on me like another heavy stone. I listened, really listened. Every word cut deeply. But I never yelled. I never lashed out. I never lost control. I simply let her admit every crack she had created in the life we built together. When she finally ran out of excuses, I waited. The silence between us became almost unbearable. Then I answered with calm certainty. I locked the door for a reason, I said. I needed to know whether you even understood what boundaries meant anymore, whether you realized how far you'd crossed the line and how many times you expected me to pretend it didn't matter. Her breathing caught. I didn't think, I know you didn't, I replied. But that's no longer enough. You've chased your excitement. You've made your decisions. Now I'm making mine. I can't remain in a marriage where trust is optional and respect only matters when you're afraid of losing me. Her voice broke. She begged. She apologized. She promised everything would change. But I remained calm. You need to understand this, I said. I loved you with everything I had. I built my life around us. But love without respect is nothing but emptiness, and I refuse to live empty inside my own home. Her crying started softly before turning into desperate sobs. Still, I didn't move toward the door. I didn't comfort her. I didn't weaken. This wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity, about proving that actions carry consequences and boundaries aren't decorations people acknowledge only when it's convenient. She pleaded again, promising it would never happen again. But promises without action are only noise, and I finally realized how long I had been drowning in that noise. I had been shrinking myself, accepting disrespect, pretending everything was fine, hoping love alone could rebuild what she had broken. I ended the call before she could pull me back into the same cycle, and I kept the door locked. No reassurance, no comfort, only silence. For the first time, that silence didn't feel lonely. It felt freeing. It felt like breathing fresh air after years of suffocating. Over the following days, the house felt colder, but strangely cleaner. Our conversations became brief, controlled, and carefully measured. She knew immediately that something inside me had permanently changed. I wasn't chasing the relationship anymore. I wasn't begging to be seen. I wasn't bending around her moods or excuses. I stood firmly in my own peace. She could either meet me there or watch me walk away. And the truth was, walking away had become the easier choice, not because I had stopped loving her, but because I was finished pouring myself into a place where respect disappeared the moment life became inconvenient. Loving someone who constantly misuses your loyalty is one of the fastest ways to lose yourself, and I refuse to lose myself any longer. Several weeks later, She borrowed a neighbor's phone and asked if she could come inside. This time I agreed, not because I wanted to reconcile, but because I had already accepted the truth about where we stood. I opened the door on my own terms. We sat together and, for the first time in a long while, spoke honestly. There was no denial, no desperate excuses, no blaming each other, only the reality neither of us could avoid anymore. Trust rarely breaks with one loud moment. It fades quietly until one day you realize there's nothing left to stand on. Affection cannot survive where boundaries are repeatedly ignored. Even the deepest love cannot endure when one person keeps damaging the very foundation it's built upon. That night I slept alone. There was no heaviness. To value you is to step back, protect your boundaries, and let the silence say everything they refuse to hear.